session provides simultaneous interpretation. You can use WeChat, Twitter, or browser, etc. to scan the QR code. You can scan the QR code at the entrance of each venue or the conference brochure and listen to simultaneous interpretation through your mobile phone. 那提大家，活动的环节会提供同声传译的服务，你们可以 scan 会看手册的二维码，然后通过手机收听。谢谢各位。So, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, may we now invite the speakers for the OG Talk. And the OG Talk's topic today is Ethereum, Insightful Stories and Future Development. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce the speakers in the forum. They are Ross Zhang, Managing Partner of SNZ, Jerry Liu, Founding Partner of Waterdrip Capital, Yu Du, General Director of Wangshan Blockchain Labs, Ben He, co-founder and CEO of IM Token, and Roland Xun, General Counsel of Fembushi Capital. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speakers on stage. 掌声欢迎我们这个环节的嘉宾。现在我们将时间交给 Ross。
首先非常感谢大家来到我们今天早上的这个以太坊专场，然后呢，我知道大家最近周边的这个活动很多，那么今天呢，我们就邀请各位以太坊最早期的 OG 来跟大家分享一些这个以太坊最早期的一些非常有意思的这个故事，我相信能够让大家了解到这个以太坊就是整个的这个发展。那所以呢，这个第一个我先做一下自我介绍。我是 Ross， 然后呢，我是 SNZ 的管理合伙人，然后 SNZ 呢是最早在14年、15年的时候就最早期的投资和支持了这个以太坊，然后包括这个举办了很多以太坊最早期的这么一些社区活动。那么我们作为一个 VC Fund， 其实是一直是非常非常支持以太坊整个的这个生态的发展。然后大家早上稍早的时候，其实也看到了这个 Dr. Fulton， 他们是 Arbitrum， 然后呢，我们也是非常早期的这个投资人和支持者。那么接下来呢，我们就有请这个各位嘉宾，然后来做一个自我介绍。那首先从这个 Jerry 哥开始。
大家好，我是 Jerry。但是在圈子里呢，大家可能更习惯叫我巨蟹，可能我真实的名字反而没多少人知道。我是这个水滴资本的创始合伙人，也曾经比较早期的参加过一些就是 crypto 方面的一些项目。谢谢大家。
好，大家好，我是万象区块链实验室的杜宇，我们也是这次活动的这个主办方。首先也感谢大家在历经了一个很长的一周之后，还在星期六早上来到这儿，然后支持我们这个活动。然后大家可能听到我们在座的很多嘉宾嗓子都已经哑了，经历了一周的时间。然后万象区块链实验室呢，我们也是算是亚洲或者中国最早的以太坊的支持者。我们从14年开始研究区块链，到15年正式设立区块链实验室，然后在整个亚洲去 promote 这个区块链也好，整个 Web3 行业的发展，然后同时也是最早的以太坊的生态的支持者。
好，谢谢，有请班总。
嗨，大家好，我是 Ben，I'm Token 创始人。我们是像我自己本人的话，可能2014年看到以太坊的白皮书，然后一头就扎进了这个区块链这个生态哈，所以当时也是蛮幸运。其实2015年的话，也是参加了万象实验室这边举办的，在上海，我还记得在那个德勤的大楼举办的 Hackathon， 所以就诞生了这个 HongKong 这个钱包。HongKong 的话，其实一开始我们就扎根在以太坊生态，那也算是在亚洲这边第一个去做以太坊移动端友好的这样数字钱包那我们现在到今年的话，发展到第7年整体的话也算发展的蛮不错 ，onboard 了1500万的用户。那整体的话，我们也是分布式的一个团队，我们在中国、新加坡，包括台北有我们的研究办公室那 当下的话，我觉得今天大家会看到我们在提 Web3，那其实它的起源还是来自于说像以太坊，特别是像以太坊白皮书的作者干物的，很早期就写了这个关于 Web3 的相应的一些研究的文章啊，所以今天也很开心来到这里跟大家做一个分享的交流，聊一聊过去以太坊的发展历史以及未来以太坊的发展的方向。
好，谢谢笨总。那接下来有请 Roland。
大家好，我是 Roland， 我是那个分布式资本的General Counsel， 就总法律顾问。分布式资本是在2015年由 Vitalik， 然后万象的肖峰肖总和沈波3位一起成立的，也是亚太地区最早的区块链投资机构，也是以太坊最早的一个投资机构吧。所以，我们在这么多年见证了以太坊发展的一个历史。今天很高兴有机会跟大家分享一下我们的一些经历，谢谢。
对，非常谢谢各位的这个自我介绍啊，因为这个我们这个圆桌呢，整个都是相当于是以太坊最早期的这些老朋友的这个聚会，然后呢，所以其实以太坊最早期其实发生了非常多非常有意思的这个事情。那我们其实先有请这个巨蟹哥先来给大家先来大家做介绍。为什么先有请他呢？是因为我们的 co-founder。然后还有巨蟹哥一起翻译了这个以太坊的白皮书，然后以太坊的这个就是中文的这个名字呢，也是这个巨蟹哥的这个奇思妙想。然后呢，接下来就有请巨蟹哥来做一定的这个分享。
谈起这个事情呢，这个时间要追溯到2015年的这个上半年，那时候还是区块链这个行业发展的非常的早期，就是在这个领域内的关注这个领域的人其实也非常的少，但是在上海呢，就是我们有一些小伙伴，就是在这个领域内经常的做一些讨论，去组织一些聚会来谈论这些方面的事情。也会经常的在一些早期的这个媒体上，比如说巴比特啊，或者说等等这些媒体上去写一些文章什么的。那个时候呢，其实圈内的项目非常少。我记得当时的这个交易所里，基本上就是比特币、莱特币，可能还有像 BTS 等等这样的一些项目。当时呢，我是在 BTS， 就是 BitShares 这个项目，浸润的比较深。当时呢，像沈波老师他们也是非常的关注这个项目。那么2015年的可能是2月份的某一天吧，这个沈波老师就找到我说，你能不能翻译一个白皮书，就是 Ethereum 的白皮书。可能是我当时经常在这个像巴比特上去发表一些文章。他觉得我的文笔好像还可以，就找到我，让我做这件事情。那时候其实我们像 Roland， 我们其实也有一个小组，有一个机构叫彼得创业营，包括当时这个达鸿飞等等都在这个组织里面，还有这个像 SNZ 当初的创始人葫芦都在这个组织里面。那么当时呢，我就找到葫芦。我跟他一起翻译这个白皮书，后来也就做了这件事情。那么关于以太坊这个中文名字，应该也是后来大家喜欢津津乐道的一个话题吧。反正当时也没有想那么多，为什么翻译成这个名字呢？就是 Ethereum 前面的这个 Ether 翻译成以太应该是没有什么争议的。但是 EUM 这个东西翻译成什么呢？它的含义，这个词根的含义本来就是工厂，这样的一个意思。我想 Vitalik 当初把这个命名 Ethereum， 应该就是说，去做一个可以用智能合约，去做一个智能合约的工厂，来做很多各样大家定制的这样的一些事情。那么当时我就想，我们总不能翻译成以太工厂吧？那么找一个什么字呢？那么坊这个字可能在中文里边的意思就是工厂、作坊这样的一个含义，应该比较贴合这个 Ethereum 这个本来的含义，所以最后就定下来的这么一个名字。这是当初就是最初的一些基本的故事吧。然后呢，那个时候其实 整个行业发展的非常的早期 ，ETHDream 这个项目刚出来的时候也没有那么多人关注，所以第一次当时我们这个比特营这个小组呢，还有另外一个叫初夏虎的成员，他是来自加拿大的，那么他跟 Vitalik 也有某些渊源，他就把 Vitalik 请到了中国来做一次交流吧。我们当时就是去了杭州，去了深圳，也在上海去做了各种各样的活动，但是当时的反响也不是特别的热烈。我记得在杭州的这个咖啡馆里去做分享的时候，可能好像听众主要的一个反应就是听得不太懂，不知道具体的在讲什么。然后 Vitalik 呢，他在杭州、深圳逛了一圈之后呢，他的一个感想是，好像中国除了交易所跟挖矿，没有什么特别有趣的东西，这是他当时的一个感想。当时大致的情况就是这样。也请其他的嘉宾也分享一下他们经历的这些早期的故事，我们一会儿在一起分享更多的东西吧。
好的，非常感谢巨蟹。那么接下来有请杜宇来为我们分享。
好的，其实我进区块链这个行业也是从读比特币白皮书、以太坊白皮书开始，然后读以太坊白皮书的时候呢，先偷懒就读了巨蟹翻译的这个中文版，中文版读完了之后再来读英文版，然后那我其实在想，在14、15、16年，我其实有一个个人的观点，就是以太坊是真正的把区块链带进了主流。然后因为以前大家讲都还是比特币，然后觉得比特币只是一些简单的金融的应用，做一些支付当黄金一样用，而真正的以太坊上面智能合约是让更多人看到了区块链这个技术的，或者叫 DLT 这个技术的这个真正的效果。然后所以我一直会觉得说，如果没有以太坊，其实就没有我们今天的这个 Web3 也好，叫区块链的生态也好。所以其实在14年的时候，我们把以太坊把 Vitalik 请到，其实当时在海南办的一个财经论坛上面来做演讲。那其实我觉得作为万象区块链来说，我们在这个角度，我觉得做的最有价值的一件事情，我们可能是亚洲第一个，甚至是全球最早的把以太坊带进主流的机构的。然后一方面我们是第一个作为一个大的公司来支持以太坊基金会的一个公司，在15年的时候支持了以太坊50万美金。那当时是以太坊处于最困难的时候，那么当时有一家这个中国的传统公司愿意支持以太坊，其实也是给整个社区带来了更多的信心。那第二件事呢，因为我们看到了以太坊未来可能所带来的各种各样的可能性，所以其实我们是带着 Vitalik 在亚洲去建各种各样的这个金融机构，建各种各样的不同的政府的部门，让大家更好的来知道区块链是什么，区块链和比特币不一样。因为那时候大家提到区块链，第一想到是比特币，想到比特币想到更多是一些负面的信息，所以我们希望通过以太坊这样的新的架构，让大家更加看到区块链技术加智能合约技术所带来的一些未来的应用场景。所以我现在回想所有的这些事情，做过很多很有趣的事情，但是在那个时间点最重要的事情就是，除了咱们社区的人知道以太坊、支持以太坊以外，我们把以太坊带进了主流，带进了这个监管视角。所以大家其实回过头来去看，哪怕是在中国大陆对于区块链对于这个和 crypto 监管最严的地方，其实所有的人，不管是从监管还是到金融机构还是到企业，大家对于以太坊到今天为止，过去这么多年，永远都是持的非常正面的态度。我觉得这也是我们当时做出和我们在座的这些大家一起做出的努力的最重要的成果。好，谢谢。
好，谢谢杜总分享。那接下来有请何斌。
好的。可能分享一些比较有意思的回忆哈。我相信可能在座也有是 HongKong 的用户。因为我们是2016年大概在11月11号提交了我们 iOS 的第一个 beta 版本，相信在座我们的用户也在这个观众席里面啊。其实 刚才聊到就是白皮书，然后以太坊作为智能合约平台，其实在看到以太坊之前，因为我本身在 IT 行业做技术做产品，所以在非常早期其实也看了比特币，并同时可能也尝试了用比特币的客户端对吧去领取它的水管的这个比特币来尝试去体验，但在那个当下，可能对于数字货币这个点还是存在着非常多的不理解或者是质疑啊，所以没有深度的参与进来。那直到14年看到以太坊的白皮书，因为它提到通过区块链这个技术，在这个智能合约之上，可以打造出来各种各样的去中心化的应用。今天我们说的 DApp， 对吧？就在那个当下，可能就被这样的一个叙事所打动啊。如果今天我们回头去看，因为发展了7、8年，其实白皮书上提到的这些去中心化应用，大多数其实都已经兑现了。大家去看token， 首先对吧？我们不管是 ICO 发 token， 到今天各个项目方通过 token 来做募资、做空投，对吧？这是一个很重要的一个 killer feature， 也是一个很重要的应用它在17年的那个早期 ICO 大爆发的时候就已经被印证了啊，然后到后面18、19年不断的去深化整个应用，我们会看到 DeFi， 对吧？去中心化的金融，那今天 DeFi 是特别火的，也是得到了充分的印证的这样一个用例啊。其实还有包括像预测市场，然后还有像去中心化的存储。包括刚才前面像之前有提到智能合约钱包，包括现在 TA 账户这些，其实我们都看到在白皮书里面都做了这样的一些愿景的描述啊。所以我们回头去看，就白皮书给到的这样一些启示，对于未来的愿景描述，在当下我们去看，其实一都兑现了。那 mToken 在16年发布的产品，其实我们当时的设计的产品的思路也是朝着这样的一个愿景的兑现去实现了。包括第一版本，我们非常友好的让大家去叫一键添加 token 的方式，因为整个 token 是在智能合约里面，用户是无法跟智能合约去交互，对吧？去看这个 token 它的余额、它的数量，怎么样去领取，怎么样去转账，所以我们也做了这样的功能。然后再到后面像 ICO， 我们也做了相应的一些 DApp， 让我们的用户可以一键的去参加 ICO。那当时大家可以用 Ether， 对吧？通过这样一键的方式去参与到早期的那些项目，包括像 Gnosis、Status。等等啊，后面一系列可能几十个、上百个的这些应用啊，然后到 ENS 域名，我们也是第一个去做了在移动端这个钱包里面的这样的一个非常友好的一个 DApp 等等，就这些例子，可能我们在早期创业阶段，朝着以太坊本身白皮书所描绘的图景啊，希望通过技术整合产品，再到用户的需求能发挥出来。那我们当下回过头来去看的话，这些事情一一的都在发生。而且对于以太坊这样平台，它的潜力还非常无限啊！那今天我们也看到那么多的这个创业者涌入进来，我们的整个政策到资本，对吧？对于这个土壤的一个孵化是非常有信心的去看到整个区块链生态的大爆发。我先带给大家这一点分享。
好，谢谢 Ben， 因为我这边特别想提到一点，就是 mToken 是我用的第一个手机端的钱包。然后呢，我也是 mToken 最早期的这个用户之一，就是看着这个产品真的是一路过来，这也非常感慨。那接下来有请 Roland
说一下那个一些过去的有趣故事吧。因为其实以太坊来中国最早其实主要是沈波最早带到中国来，因为当时那个。其实应该是2014年的时候，沈波最早跟我说以太坊的时候，我其实当时还没理解这个项目到底是做什么，因为他感觉实在是太新了。后来到2015年上半年，可能比如2、3月份的时候，因为当时那个沈波就带着 Vitalik 去，就第一次找了肖峰肖总，这个是他们几个人第一次会面，所以当时很巧合，为什么会去带 Vitalik 去见肖峰肖总呢？其实主要原因就是。当时在肖总其实那个虽然还没有研究以太坊，但是他其实已经发表了一些关于区块链的一些非常高深的见解，就在2015年早期。这在当时看来是很难想象，因为肖总是一个传统金融背景出身的人，他不是一个搞技术专家，或者是最早搞比特币投资。 他就是一个传统金融出身，以前是搞证券的，还有博时基金创始人。所以当时沈波看了肖总这些文章一篇文章之后，他觉得非常 impressive， 然后就是立刻带了Vital去那个找各种机会去找肖总。反正他们第一次见面呢，其实应该是在一个机场里，好像是肖总要去机场去某个地方，或者是从美国地方回来，他们就在机场里见了一面。然后那次3个在机场第一次见面，就聊得非常投机。然后后来就决定深入开始接触，包括那个其中后来就是15年，就是做了至少2件比较重要的事，就一件就是刚才杜宇刚提到过，就是万象区块链实验室就投了以太坊50万美元，这其实当时对以太坊来说是一个非常重要的一个燃煤，解决了他们一个重要的问题，就是融资问题，就解决了他们燃眉之急。但这合同也是其实都是我起草的。然后另外就是他们3人就准备就组织成立了就分布式资本，就 Famous Capital， 他们都是3位创始合伙人。当然就是因为国籍原因，就是肖总是可能主要在境内，然后沈波跟Vital主要在境外，他们做的就业务地域可能也在不太一样，但是基本是用同样的一个品牌。所以就15年，接下来然后随之而就是万象在国内搞了第一次中国区块链大会。也是那个到现在来应该是第8年了，所以这点是非常不容易。也是从那时开始，那个区块链在中国进入了一个主流的世界。其实回想，以太坊本身这个项目，其实在当年15年的时候，还是我觉得世界上也没有多少人能够理解，因为当时那个15年，沈波总他因为当时还是那个 BitShares 的那个 CEO 了，当然巨蟹也提到。因为巨蟹可能是BitShares研究最深的人，就至少是中国研究最深的人。当时其实我们内部一直在讨论这2个项目，就BitShares和那个 Ethereum 这2个项目，这2个项目其实我觉得都是有革命意义的。但是呢，从当时一个视角来看，其实会觉得这2个的对比其实有点奇怪，就是 BitShares 本质上它其实是把那个底层区块链跟应用是捆绑在一起，也就是说 BitShares 这个区块链里面上面其实已经架设了原来的开发者就是 BM 就是Daniel Larimer 他自带的那一系列应用，这些应用到现在看来还是非常创新的，就它就是建设最早的 DEX 就去中心化交易所，最早的稳定币，甚至最早的 Oracle 的模型，这都是它建设，这点是非常革命性。但是也是这一点就是导致它所有的 App 都是创始人自己开发的，而且是 hard coded 在那个 blockchain 上。它的 blockchain 其实不是一个严格说不是一个开放式的平台，它其实等于是它的 blockchain 是专门为它自己这些 app 为服务的。就这样的话，导致它上面的那些 app 和自己的 blockchain 是紧密捆绑在一起，而且其实属于一个排他的关系。这可能是相对一个传统的一个模式吧。以太坊就是完全是反过来，其实以太坊本身没有任何应用。以太坊像它的开发者以太坊基金会 Ethereum Foundation， 它其实本身不开发任何应用，它就提供一个基础设施。它上面其实就一个，它自己把自己定位成一个 Smart Contract Platform， 就是智能合约平台。所有的上面的 App 都是其实第三方来开发的，而且第三方来开发来部署它的智能合约，就是没有任何 permission， 所以它是一个 permissionless ledger。就这点来看，它就是那个类似于 Android。就 Google 开发了 Android 这个开放式的操作系统，但它 Google 可能本身自己不开发任何 app， 而是让所有的第三方都来开发，所以这点是非常革命性的。从当时的角度来说，BitShares 可能就走的步子会更快一点。为什么？就是它 blockchain 推出的第一天，可能它上面的 app 已经部署起来了，而且已经能用了。当时我们在15年是跟暴走也讨论这个问题，因为他是一直想运一个去中心化交易所。其实15年的时候，因为BitShares上去中心化交易所已经是可以开始用了，而且我记得到后面BitShares 2.0的时候，其实效率它 TPS 已经也不低了，也不算低，就已经是基本可以用了。当然 1.0 可能还慢一点，但是你在15年的时候，以太坊连它基础平台都不算特别完善，更别说上面的有任何 DApp。所以当时我记得很清楚，就暴走问 Vitalik， 就是什么时候才能有一个相对比较高 TPS 的一个平台，让它可以开发一个 DEX。Vitalik 回答说，可能要几年时间，需要我当时分片完成，因为当时在没分片的时候，当时他主要的考虑的 scaling solution 都是分片 sharding 做 sharding， 但是 大家知道State Sharding 就是状态分片，它其实是一个很浩大的工程。当时Vitalik对报纸15年是对报纸说可能要30年，当然报纸说啊等不起这个时间，实在等不起，我现在就运一个去中心化交易所。但是后来其实大家也看到，其实那个到其实差不多，虽然后来以太坊选择的那个 scaling solution 它不是那个主要不是分片的，其实主要靠那个 rollups， 因为Vitalik在中间其实改过好几次，后来觉得还是 rollups 是可能比较好的方案，但是那个其实，在 rollups 还没起来的时候，其实大家都看到，其实 DEX 就已经开启了，就以 DEX 为代表的 DeFi 其实就开始已经兴起了。时间上其实也差不多，其实就是19年的时候，就差不多就当时说3、4年以后那个时，就时间上倒是正好匹配了当时的一些观点。我现在简单说到这些吧。
哦，非常谢谢 Roland 分享。那我就是刚才各位可能分享的是亚洲的故事，那么我从这个世界另外一边，从以太坊的这个发源地加拿大，然后我也简短跟大家分享一下，因为大家知道 Vitalik 是加拿大人，然后呢，其实以太坊也是发源于这个多伦多，发源于加拿大。然后呢，所以呢，我是15年关注到有人开始讨论这个，因为这个我对技术，因为我是学计算机的，然后呢，我对这个技术还是相对来说比较敏感。但当时呢，我已经在加拿大养老基金已经开始做投资方面的这个事情。然后这个就是经验非常特殊，也给了我2种不同视角。然后当时呢，我就看到多伦多其实很早期的时候就有一些以太坊最早期的这些支持者，然后呢，他们去办了一些以太坊最早期的这个 meetup，然后那么我记得最早期的 meetup，比如像 Vitalik， 然后呢 Gavin Wood、Joe Lubin， 然后还有 Anthony DeLoreal 这个可能现在大家也不是那么熟悉，但他也是这个以太坊的这个联合创始人，还有一些以太坊最早期的一些社区的人，然后还有一些这个就是我们讲这个 Web2 或者是一些这个极客，然后呢当时也在这个 Meetup 那边，然后呢就是当时其实听的是不是特别懂，然后呢当时觉得这个事情从技术上来看还是特别早期，包括当时这个无论是开发也好还是运行也好都特别慢，然后大家就觉得这个事儿到底能不能成。然后呢，因为我当时在加拿大养老基金，然后我觉得这件事儿还是非常 make sense 的，因为我能看到对金融世界的一个改变吧，就是尤其是在这个提升整个的这个资金效率、提升整个的这个信任状态能够有一个改变。于是呢，我又在加拿大养老基金内部成立了一个区块链的这么一个研究小组刚开始是有10个人，然后等我离开的时候，差不多是有大概100个人的这个规模。然后呢，那时候我们其实邀请了这个 Vitalik， 邀请了 Mike Novogratz， 邀请了 Joe Lubin， 大家也知道那个 Consensus 的这个创始人 Joe Lubin 也是加拿大人。然后呢，来我们那边来去讲 ，OK， 到底什么是智能合约，有什么样用？然后呢，到底什么是以太坊？然后以太坊上面会有哪些这个项目然后呢，其实就是说在机构里面，其实当时我们应该是比较早来去关注到以太坊这个事情的那么这个其实也是就是从我另外一个视角，在以太坊的这个发源地加拿大，然后也跟大家来去分享一下这个早期的一些故事。那么我们接下来有一个问题呢，是因为大家知道，就是说以太坊在北京时间4月13号的这个早上，然后也完成了这个以太坊上海升级，上海 Shapala 这个升级。那么就是说各位，就是说在以太坊整个的这个发展过程中，大家觉得有哪些比较重要的这个里程碑？尤其是上海升级之后，大家怎么去看以太坊的这个发展那么我们还是由巨蟹先开始。
谈到以太坊发展中的一些里程碑，其实具体的时间我应该已经记不清楚了，但是我应该能记住它大概有几个关键的节点。第一个节点呢，就是它的主网上线的时候，这个如果我没记错的话，应该是15年的7月份左右。当时呢是 Gavin Wood 几乎是以他的一己之力去创建了这个 EVM。定制了这个以太坊的一些标准。当时谁也没想到 EVM 后来会几乎成为这个行业的一个标准当时大家应该说最惊叹的是智能合约这个事情竟然真的是可以实现了，就是这么一种心情。然后呢，接下来的一个热点就是说是一个 ICO 的热潮。 因为大家发现自己可以在以太坊上去发资产，可以通过这样的一种方式去募资。当时是出现了非常非常多的这样的一些项目，当然其中有很多是投机主义的，是泡沫，但是也确实留下来很多真正的长期主义的、真正的在搞这个行业内的创新的这样的一些项目。再往后呢，就是 NFT 早期的一些实践，包括应该大家还比较熟悉的这个加密猫等等这样的一些项目。那么就是让大家看到了就是资产的另外一种可能，因为这之前大家所经常交易的、经常去定制的都是一些同质化的资产然后像加密猫这样的资产，让大家真的看到了一种非同质化资产的这样的一种可能，它就为人类的金融打开了更大的一扇窗口。那么再往后呢，就是 DeFi Summer， 就是在这个时间呢，就是大量的这样的一些去中心化金融的实践开始了。当然其中的一些实践，比如说像这个发明这件事情，其实现在看起来是并不是很可以持续的，但是也有很多的这样的一种金融的商业模式被证明是可行的，并且被保留下来了，比如抵押借贷，比如 AMM 模型的这种去中心化交易所，现在都成为了这个行业的一些标准化的组件。那么这个道路呢，还在继续的延续下去。我相信，再继续往前，还有更多的这样的一些金融方面的商业模式被发现，被持续下来，去给人类的这种金融实践带来更多的这种可能，再之后那应该就是 merge 前不久发生的这样的一个 merge， 其实这个 merge 已经被无数次的推迟了。其实在他上次成功的进行的时候，我也没想到他是这么如此平滑、如此顺利的完成了。应该说，对于很多的这个以太坊的粉丝来说，其实应该是心头的一块石头，最后真的落了地。大家可以把过去的这些担心什么的都忘掉，可以在更远的看到一些前方的东西。那么这次上海升级呢？我相信它最大的意义是让这个流动性变得更好，是让这个它甚至可以说新开创了一个 LSD 的赛道，就是使得以太坊的这个 staking 这个抵押这方面的这些业务可以成长为和比特币挖矿这个行业相媲美的一个赛道，这是我的一个基本的看法。
对，好，谢谢巨蟹。其实刚才有一点特别有感受，就是我们在早期都没有想到这个以太坊是一个从最早期还是比较原始、比较简陋，对吧？运行速度也比较慢，然后但它真的是按照这个路线图一步一步每一个里程碑都在实现。而且就是这个实现过程中有一个非常大的切换，几千亿美金的资产运行在上面，仍然能做到如此平滑，那真的是所有以太坊社区和开发者共同努力的这个结果。那么接下来有请杜宇总来给大家分享。
好的，我觉得我刚刚就在想，以太坊它当时白皮书里面其实写的一个目标是成为世界计算机，但是呢，其实到我们今天来看，以太坊并不是一个世界计算机，它其实是一个金融基础设施。然后一路走下来，各种各样的，其实今天已经事实上成为了 Web3 这个世界里面的一个很重要的金融基础设施。那我觉得我从另外一个角度来说，最重要的一些节点其实是它的各种各样的新的资产的协议的出现。从最早的 ERC20，然后原来你要发个 token 得要自己组一条链，那个门槛还是挺高的。有了 ERC20之后，每个人发自己的 token 几分钟之内就可以完成。然后到后面的 ERC721来代表这些世界当中。更多的非标的资产，以及衍生出来的1155等等一系列的资产的协议，我觉得这些是以太坊整个发展历史上最重要的一些基础的设施。然后另外的话，今天我觉得以太坊 一直在不同的阶段的发展，像过去几年其实还是说更多的像围绕资产协议这些基础设施来，然后过去的这1-2年时间更多的就是金融基础设施很多工具已经在了，但是它的性能、它的成本又存在了问题，所以今天更多的趋势又变成了怎么样让以太坊的就各种这个 Layer 2，包括后面的这个 Layer 3，其实是更好的怎么样让以太坊来承载更大规模的应用，所以我觉得不同阶段它有不同的侧重点和不同的使命。我就简单说这些。
好，谢谢杜宇总。那接下来有请 Ben。
好，可能稍微带大家回顾一下以太坊本身的这个发展路线图啊。如果从以太坊的早期来说，大家都清楚，早期规划了4个阶段嘛，是从 Frontier， 刚才巨蟹说可能是2015年7月底正上线的，作为像一个 beta 的网络啊，然后到2016年的这个 Pi Day 3月14号 Homestead 就第2阶段正式上线，那这是一个正式的公开发布版本。然后再往前可能是 Metropolis 大都市啊，那这个主要是还是刚才提到像 DApp 应用 DeFi 大爆炸对吧？生态繁荣发展的一部分。然后现在进入可能是第4阶段 Solidity。但这个中间，其实我们知道，整个以太坊围绕2条线，可能中间还是产生非常多的一些调整变化啊。那一条线是围绕怎样从 POW 这个共识转向 POS。那今天其实大家都看到，去年的 The Merge， 那正式以太坊已经进入到 POS， 对吧？这样的一个阶段。然后刚刚发生的4月13号，对吧？是上海分叉，也让大家能够基于 staking 之上可以做自由的一个提款的动作啊。所以这个是围绕着共识的协议的一个进化啊。这个是从以太坊有这个想法诞生白皮书，再到整个路线，它基本上没有变化，对吧？往这样路径走，只是说中间所花的这个时间周期是非常长。刚才也提到不断的延期，中间的难度炸弹拆了很多次，延迟了很多次的状态啊。然后第2条线路可能是围绕着 scalability， 就是可扩展性这个层面。那从一开始 state sharding， 然后到后面 Vitalik 提到以 low up century， 以 low up垂直 scale 的这种方式路线为去做 scaling 的这样一个方向啊。那我觉得可能在第1条线路可能达到一个里程碑一个状态 ，POS 进入一个稳定态啊，至今已经跑了快大半年，接近1年这样的一个状态。那以太坊的路线图往后发展，可能是要围绕着应用，怎么样把 scalability 去做好啊？那以这个 low up 为导向，其实像以太坊接下去的一些路线图上，我们会看到从 the merge 往后是 the surge， 那 the surge 其实最重要的是怎么样通过协议的升级，为 low up 去创造更好的低成本的、更强的这个可扩展性啊。那这一点上，我觉得对于 M Token 来说也是非常非常重要，因为钱包服务到应用，连接给我们的广大的用户，所以这个可扩展性是非常至关重要的，能够让区块链Web3 带入到千家万户，带入到普通老百姓啊，所以我们也非常期待以太坊在接下去的整个路线图的发展啊 ，scalability 能够进一步的不断的低成本、高性的去扩展啊，能够像今天的 Web2 对吧，传统的互联网的这样的一种吞吐量。然后另外一块，我觉得刚才前面也有演讲提到的是用户体验。那这个层面的话，像协议层去推动整个 AA 抽象账户，那这个层面我觉得围绕用户怎样去降低门槛，减少这个安全的一些风险，我觉得对于协议层也是要为应用层去铺路，对吧？所以这个层面，我觉得接下去对于钱包而言的话，也是探索在这些协议的一些改进之上，那应用端我们怎么样更好的去把用户的这个门槛去降低啊，体验得到更大的提升，能够让大家用起来既省心又安心，对吧？然后在这个之上能够去承载越来越丰富的这些生态应用。
好，谢谢 Ben， 因为 Ben 刚才其实提到了非常久远的名词 Serenity 宁静。这个其实是在以太坊刚开始白皮书的时候它的一个规划，然后完了大家又会去讲以太坊2.0。然后到现在，大家去讲这个 merge、purge、splurge、verge， 对吧？这个以太坊的这个整个的这个新的这个路线图，然后我们也看到这个路线图其实越来越详细了。 然后呢，也是越来越根据整个技术的这个发展也来调整。那么今天因为时间的这个关系呢，那我其实最后还有一个问题想让大家来一起分享一下。那么就是我们跳出以太坊的这个生态，那作为一个在区块链对吧，在 crypto 里面行业的这个 OG， 那么大家就是各位嘉宾有什么跟大家来一起分享的？那么我们可以做一个简短的这个分享。那么我们由 Roland 先开始吧。
他说跳出以太坊这个问题，就是说，其实以太坊那个，我个人觉得就是你研究区块链现在跳不出以太坊，因为它其实提供了目前的一个区块链行业的发展一个范式了。其实很多其他的项目都是在或多或少在学以太坊，当然虽然有各自特点，但总体框架上，目前区块链行业还没有超越以太坊到下一代区块链的东西，就目前还没有，就也许会以后会有。觉得最近我其实也一直在思考这个问题，就是以太坊它现在包括以太坊自己怎么发展和下一步区块链会有些什么东西。我现在看到有些发展方向是有可能是存在的，就其实最主要是一个，大家看到现在以太坊它从早期扩容，主要是想推 sharding 那个方案，但现在其实改为推 rollups 那个方案，这可能是更现实的一个方案。但其实现在 rollups 大家都看到，现在包括 Arbitrum 和那个 Optimism 为代表的一些，就 OP 系那个rollups 和那 ZK 系 rollups， 其实这 rollups 其实在未来1-2年内很可能都会成熟的，而且我相信，因为他们的那个本身他们效率会比较高的，所以像大部分 dApps 可能会考虑还是到 rollups 上去部署，因为它的效率高，同时费用低。所以接下来以太坊的一个主要一个问题就变成，就主链跟 rollups 之间一个关系怎么解决，到底是谁来捕获这个价值的问题。其实这一点以太坊接下来可能会考虑这一点。就是现在来看是那个 rollups 它基本主要是那个一次性打包来向那个主链支付 gas 费，这个也是节省了很多 dApps 本身的 gas 费，但是那个以后来看，这两者利益如何分配，它是一个比较大的问题。同时从另一个维度上，其实现在很多人也在研究那个区块链的一个模块问题。就这个，刚才 Consensus 那位伙伴就提到这个，就是 monolithic 那个 blockchain 和 modular blockchain 这两个问题。这两个问题其实在去年就开始，就提出来。然后最早因为我记得是从那个 Laser Ledger 提出的，就他们就现在叫 Celestia。他们其实想到就是从扩容的另外一个维度，就跟扩容没关系，他就是把状态这个事情单独外包出去，就我做一层那个去中心化的网络，这也是目前也是一种可能性，就是他就在把以太坊的状态单独外包出去，做一个独立的一个网络。这样的话，以后 rollups 因为它现在的生意模式是想，它需要那个去 core data， 就是从主链那边获取数据，但是那个主链呢，可能就是现在以太坊的 gas 费成本比较高了。理论上，他们以后那个也会像Celestia 这种专门提供状态那些单独的网络来请求数据，你看这个可能成本会比较低一点，所以这样的话就从另一个维度上把区块链给模块化。实际上，未来的模块化的那个东西可能还会有很多，包括那个它 sequencer 就是排序器，这也是一个重要的一个东西，跟 MEV 有很大的关系。还有包括再进一步的，就现在以太坊还没解决的一个存储问题。其实以太坊现在严格说它目前是没有存储网络，它所有的链上数据它不会把它定义为一个存储了。但实际上现在整个网络世界的数据是远大于以太坊链上的几百 G 的数据，这个就不是一个数量级别的东西。所以以后 Web3 它本质上以后它会要调用到所有的互联网数据。所以从这一点角度来说，它有一个去中心化的存储网络也是一个必要的，但不一定是以太坊自己来做。这个因为有很多去中心化网络已经存在了。今后的话，就是所有这些跑业务的那个链，包括 rollups， 它怎么样去来调用这些去中心化网络、存储网络里面的数据，也是一个比较重要的课题。这是我目前一些思考，但是没有一个明确答案。我真是。
非常谢谢 Roland。那么接下来有请 Ben 给我们做一个简短的分享。
好的，因为时间关系，简短做个总结哈。因为刚才提到，作为应用层，包括用户，大家最关心的可能还是体验。刚才说怎么样用的舒心安心。 但回过头来，可能希望说，我们看到整个区块链的三角不可能里面 security 安全，然后到 decentralization 去中心化，然后才是 scalability。那现在正在解决问题。那我觉得可能从不管是行业的建设者还是到用户，我觉得大家需要有多一些耐心。我们首先要坚定的先确保安全和去中心化。然后在这个之上，我们怎么样能够对 scalability 做进一步的突破啊？所以希望大家多一些耐心，美好的事情终将发生。
好，谢谢 Ben。接下来有请杜文。
好，我想说2点。第一点呢，就是像以太坊模块化这件事情，其实是特别好。原来学通信的，大家去看整个互联网的协议站，其实也是一个个的协议，大家一起堆起来。所以，我觉得未来可能以太坊就会像 TCP/IP 这样的整个协议站一样。每个人都是其中的一个协议层，所以从这个程度上来说，我觉得以后，某种程度上来说，我觉得以后的 Web3 世界，以太坊会是当中很重要的一个基础设施，大家，都会成为和以太坊来互动的一个协议，不管是通过 Layer 2、Layer 3还是各种其他的协议来对接。然后这是一个。第二点呢，我觉得也是最重要的，就是其实从过去几年来看，亚洲在 Web3 或者在以太坊。包括在以太坊当中的这些开发者社区的和 Builder 社区的声音，其实是越来越小的。所以也是希望借着我们通过香港这次活动，能够吸引更多的好的开发者进入 Web3。因为中国有着世界上和中美之间2个国家，其实是有着世界上最多的好的开发者。我们有一整套的这个人才培养和教育体系。我们希望能够把更多的好的人才和 Builder 带进 Web3， 带进以太坊的生态，这样才能加速刚刚 Ben 说的我们这样更美好的未来的更早的到来。
好，非常谢谢杜宇。那接下来有请巨蟹。
我想着重谈一下这个，在我眼中，这个区块链这些技术对我们的金融系统的影响哈。Vitalik 曾经写过一篇文章，就是分析 ETH 的各个生态的这个重要性。但是其中呢好几样都是跟金融系统有关系的，例如他谈到了一般意义上的货币这个生态，还有稳定币这个生态，还有 DeFi 这个生态。那么一般意义上的货币是怎么样一种东西呢？就像传统金融世界里的这个黄金。我们应该知道，就是在过去的半年里，中国央行也在大量的购入黄金，因为黄金在目前的传统金融世界里，它依然是整个金融系统的一个基础的资产。那么在加密世界里呢，我觉得像 BTC、像 ETH 这种资产也可以视为这个世界里的这个基础资产。他们会作为对底层的资产来支撑起整个的这个加密金融的这样的一个大厦。那么稳定币呢？稳定币是可以为一般人所用的这样的一个比较安全、比较没有太多顾虑的这样一种资产。那么我觉得现在我们谈到这个稳定币呢，还是比较早期的一个阶段，因为最大的一个问题是我们现在所说的稳定币，它还是要依赖于法币的，它还是需要去锚定美元的。也就是说，它还没有它还在很大意义上是跟传统金融联系非常紧密的一个东西。那么我觉得呢，在将来我们一定会出现不依赖于法币的这样的一种稳定币。那么我觉得那个时候呢，我们对传统金融的一些依赖会最大程度的消除。你比如说美元美国人经常说美元是我们的货币，但是是你们的问题。那么我觉得到将来也许在加密世界里，我们会创造出这样的一种稳定币，它并不依赖于某个国家的这样一种信用来产生它的这样的一种影响。到那个时候，我想加密世界区块链技术对我们的金融的影响就会更深了一步。那么 DeFi 呢？DeFi 的发展，我觉得它是慢慢的正在使我们的金融去中介化以及向自托管化发展的一种道路上前进。在这个Web3 的世界里，有很多道的组织，其中有一个很大的组织叫做 Bankless， 叫做 Bankless 道。它的目标就是让大家以后的这种交易不依赖于银行。 那么我相信这样的一种愿景应该是在将来会实现的，就是区块链技术最终会给大家带来一个比较自由的、比较去中介的、比较对自己的资产安全负责的这样一种世界。
好，谢谢巨蟹。其实他刚才说的，其实有一点就是我们叫做这个区块链这个原生资产，对吧？在以太坊社区叫 ultrasound money， 对吧？这个叫超声波资产，对吧？然后呢，其实我也很同意刚才 Roland 讲的点。就是说，其实现在讨论区块链，它是离不开以太坊了。所以呢，我个人最大的感受，也经历过这么几个周期是，这个分久必合，合久必分，对吧？大家看到以太坊的问题，然后呢，做别的事情，然后来去解决，然后最后呢，可能又回到以太坊。那这个可能是我最大的感受。那么因为时间原因，那么就今天非常感谢各位做今天的这个分享非常感谢各位 OG， 然后也非常感谢大家的这个聆听。好，谢谢大家。
谢谢，掌声感谢嘉宾的精彩分享。Thank you, speakers, for the insightful discussion. Thank you again. And shall we take a photo together? Let's stand a bit closer together. 我们靠近一点，好，看中间的位置，拍一个照。好，再次给掌声给我们的嘉宾。Please join me in giving a round of applause to our speakers again. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, may we invite the second panel to come on stage for a discussion on the topic of opportunities after Ethereum Shanghai upgrade. So, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce the speakers in the following sessions. They are Gavin Wang, Managing Partner of SNZ, Xiao Xiao, CFA Partner of Hashkey Capital, Alex Zhu, Analysis Director of Bamboo Capital, Seth Jins, Managing Partner of Coin Fund, and Alex Golding, Ventures Associate of Delphi. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to the speakers in the following session. Round of applause, please. And moving on, I'll pass the floor to our moderator, Gavin. So over to you now, Gavin.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone. I'm Gavin, Managing Partner at SNZ Capital. It's a great honor to be the moderator today. This panel's topic is to discuss the potential investment opportunity after Shanghai upgrade. Well, to give some of the audience a little bit background about Shanghai upgrade, which has happened on April 20th. So that's the very important milestone for Ethereum, which completed the multi-year transition to a POS, to a full POS network. So from 12th to today, right? So in past a few days, there are like roughly 300,000 Ethereum has been withdrawn, right? So it's very kind of important thing for the entire community. So very glad to have all of the speakers today to go through the potential opportunities. Let's meet our panelists today first. Alex, would you mind to give a brief introduction about yourself and the fund? Thanks.
大家好，我是来自分布式资本的 Alex。我主要在分布式资本做一些分析相关的工作。然后分布式资本是从2015年成立，然后也是以太坊的最早的投资人。然后我们现在有包括在 Filecoin、Internet Computer 也就是 ICP， 还有 Polkadot 在内的大概有200多个 portfolio。然后我们也持续在关注 DeFi、NFT、隐私数据 Layer 2相关的一些项目，然后一直在 building 这个行业吧。谢谢大家。
Okay, thanks, Alex. Let's have Xiao Xiao.
Hello, everyone. I'm Xiao from Hashkey Capital, and while we are apparently Hong Kong and Singapore-based blockchain VC, and we started to invest in this space since 2015. So while our fund, our AUM is something like 1 billion since the inception. So we are like ecosystem investors. So we don't have a certain niche focus. We will look at all of the sectors in the whole industry. And now we've already got like more than 300 portfolios. So it's already there's already a very big Hashkey portfolio family. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, Seth, thanks.
Hi, I'm Seth Gins from Coin Fund from New York City. We're one of the earliest crypto venture and liquid funds in the US, so founded in 2015 by my partner Jake Brookman. And we invest across all different verticals in crypto. I'd say our biggest point of differentiation is that a lot of the team comes from traditional finance backgrounds. So we have a very good blend of traditional finance and then very crypto native as well. My background is 18 years of large cap public equities investing in New York, and I got involved in crypto in 2012 as a seed investor in Coinbase.
Thanks, Seth. Let's have Alex G. Apologies, we have two Alex today.
No worries. You can just call me Golding. That's my name on Twitter, so thank you. So my name's Alex Golding. I'm an investor at Delphi Digital. Delphi Digital is a international crypto conglomerate. We have 135 people split across 5 continents and 3 divisions. Our most externally facing division is our research. You may have seen our institutional research, Vitalik, Gavin, Toli, all the major like L1 architects have all retweeted about it and talked about how we have the best research in the space. We also have a Delphi Labs division where we build protocols in-house. Over the last 3 years, we built 2 unicorn protocols on Terra that then pivoted to Cosmos, and we're building out the liquidity layer on Cosmos. We recently announced a fundraise for our accelerator, which is building on Cosmos for the first cohort. I'm at the investments division. We have about 160 portfolio companies, pre-seed and seed investments. Sometimes will be the first check-in. We are very value add. My compensation is actually more heavily weighted towards helping our portfolio companies than it is any other like one factor. So we really believe in coming in early, rolling up our sleeves, and helping founders build the best companies that they can build.
Thanks so much, Golding. Well, given the time limitation, right, so I might not be able to have every panelist to go through every questions. So let's start a little bit like to elaborate on the potential changes and the influences which may happen after the Shanghai upgrade. So, Alex?
上海升级的话，其实最重要的一点是 POS 的 staking 的那个 ETH 可以从那个之前无限期，现在可以随时取出了嘛，这是最重要的一点更新。然后的话，还有一些优化智能合约长度，还有一些Layer 2的 Gas Fee， 还有一些优化区块奖励的一些东西。这些的话，其实是一个量变到质变的一个过程吧。因为以太坊之前也是这样一步步走来的，包括 EIP1559，然后可能短时间内大家并不会感觉到什么，但是随着时间变化，大家会觉得在以太坊上 building 也好，然后 user 的体验也好，都会慢慢的变好。然后最重要的一点的话就是，POS staking 的 ETH 从无限期的取出到现在随时可以取出，虽然它随着取出的数量还有那个存入的数量，它是有一个时间上的指数变化的。所以说呢，就是它可以保证自己的 ETH 的 staking 数量维持在一个相对安全的点，然后呢，也能吸引新的一些 staker 进来，把 ETH 质押节点，然后增加节点数量。因为 ETH 本身的话，相对于其他的区块链，它其实其他的主链 Layer 1， 它最大的优势在于它的去中心化和安全度，所以 Ethereum 也是在我心目中最适合做 DeFi 的一条 Layer 1。因为大资金想要找一个地方做 DeFi 的话，它一定会考虑你的安全性，还有包括如果你太过中心化的话，它要担心你的 rug 风险。然后 Ethereum 现在开放了这个赎回之后呢，节点数量我认为是一定会上升的。虽然短期内可能有一些早期的 staker 他们会把 Ethereum 取出来，但是时间推演之后，他们的节点数量应该会慢慢上升的。这也是对于以太坊整体的生态的安全性吧，这也是以太坊本身的核心竞争优势，就是去中心化和安全度。所以对于之后的那个以太坊上的 DeFi 的那个整体吧，都是一个利好方向嘛，包括还有诞生了 LSD 这个赛道嘛， 也算是虽然之前其他的 Layer 1也有，就像 Polkadot 上的 Bifrost， 但是从来没有像以太坊这样从 POW 转到 POS 之后，一下子让这个赛道变得那么火。因为之前的话，类似的 POS 的 Layer 1还是挺多的，但是LSD 的赛道并没有特别的发展。对，我觉得核心还是安全性跟去中心化吧，这也是以太坊最核心的竞争优势。谢谢。
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Well, Alex mentioned like LSD and like staking ratio. So, Xiao, like, do you think like it could be the most of the important like changes and influences?
Yeah, I totally agree what Alex just said. I think the core change of this Shanghai upgrade is that the staker can unstake their ETH from the network. So I think that's a very positive sign for the whole network, because if the existing channel is clear, so more institutional or bigger capital will consider to make the staking, thus make the whole network more decentralized or more the whole network safer. So I think in long run, I mean the staking rate of the Ethereum is still like pretty low, around like 15%. But for normal POS blockchain, the staking rate can be as high as 70 to 80%. So there is still a lot of room to increasing the staking rates, and since the existing channel is clear now, so I think bigger institutional will also join. For example, we are as a ETH holder, so we are also considering to make some allocation in this ETH staking. So that's for long run. And for short run, I think people will worry about maybe the selling pressure, as some of the staker has already redeemed their ETH. But I do think that this is a problem of math, maybe, because most of the staker, their cost of ETH are still like as high as 2,000 or maybe 3,000. So at this stage, they're still like underwater. So I think in short run, the selling pressure is totally okay. Yeah. That's the impact.
Since Xiao mentioned like the staking, I would like to make an advertisement for HashQuick Group launching the EPETH on the regulated exchange in Hong Kong. Okay, resulting from the changes, what are the potential investment opportunities, right? Like Sas, would you please share some of your thoughts as well as the strategy for CoinFund? Thanks.
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll take more of a markets perspective on the Shanghai upgrade, which is, if we think about where we are in the market cycle, I think there are two analogies that I like to employ. One is from a fundamental basis, what's happening right now in the market in 2023 looks a lot like 2019. So 2018 was a big bear market, a big down year in the market. 2022 was a big down year in the market. But there's a very big difference between 23 and 2019. And that's in 2019, there were a lot of really interesting tech developments emerging. So you had a lot of capital come into the space. You had a lot of developers come into the space. But a lot of that technology only matured in 2020, 2021, 2022. So it was going to take a while for that technology to mature. I think Shanghai is a really good example of the fact that in 2023, in this emerging bull market, you have a lot of technology that's maturing right now, that's maturing in 2023, and I think will be a very strong catalyst, a very strong positive for the market over the course of this year. So as Alex and Xiao have talked about, the Shanghai upgrade, very important catalyst for driving greater staking within the Ethereum ecosystem. We also have a bunch of Ethereum layer 2s, scaling solutions that are going to have liquid tokens coming to market this year. So we already have Optimism from last year, Arbitrum from earlier this year. We're going to have StarkNet, ZK Sync, a bunch of other scaling solutions coming to market. And then as we go down the list of other technical upgrades, modular blockchains, we're going to see a lot of interesting protocols coming in that space over the course of the year. The intersection of AI and crypto, a very exciting, very early emerging space, but it's going to emerge very, very quickly. And that's going to be another set of catalysts, very much incorporated with the Ethereum ecosystem coming over the course of this year. So Shanghai, and then 4844 coming later in the year as well. So we have catalysts that are positive for Ethereum itself, catalysts that are positive for protocols that are building on Ethereum, and then catalysts that are positive in the broader crypto ecosystem that make 2023 look like a very powerful setup for the ecosystem, for the market.
Yeah, thanks, Sas. Golding, like we all know, like, Delphi is very famous for like a research-driven study and like the community building, etc. So, what's your strategy this time? Like, after Shanghai upgrade.
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. I think the most important thing about all of these upgrades happening very smoothly, right? The switch to proof of stake, Chapella, all these things is that the confidence in Ethereum's developers and the Ethereum Foundation and the roadmap that is being set only becomes stronger. So how do we have more and more conviction in Ethereum, right? It's by watching them execute appropriately. And that's super powerful because the only other L1 that kind of had a chance was Solana, and Solana had a lot of technical issues, right? And it's going to take years for the community to kind of regain trust in Solana. So with every upgrade that happens like smoothly, there's more conviction in the Ethereum ecosystem and cements the network effects that Ethereum and the EVM have. And so all these L2s that my panelists are talking about, kind of benefit from this halo of Ethereum is doing well and Ethereum's devs are doing well. And the fact that we're going to have, slightly faster speeds and like slightly more efficient or significantly more efficient fee markets on Ethereum with EIP 4844, which is... For those of you who don't know, that's the pruning, right? That's proto-dank sharding, which is on the road to dank sharding, which is part of Ethereum's ultimate end goal. And what proto-dank sharding does is it allows for a lot of this data to be carried through blobs, and then you can kind of prune the tree, the Merkle tree as it goes, so you no longer need all this historical data. And blobs carry like a large amount of data, and so everything becomes much more efficient. It will also proto-dank sharding is also introducing like fee markets, which is something Solana introduced last year, and it's been proven to significantly improve like user experience, to improve gas fees for the user, and to improve like block space usage. So when we think about it from an investment perspective, it's okay, what are the ecosystems that we can have high levels of certainty and conviction in? How do we kind of position our investments to take advantage of that, and how do we invest into things where there will be liquidity? Because you can always have something new, something shiny, but if no one's using it, then no value will accrue to it, and no value accrues to it, I don't make a return, and that's my job as an investor, is to make a risk-adjusted return.
Well, thanks so much, Golding. Since you have already mentioned the EIP 4844, the pro-dank sharding stuff, we understand. Originally, it was planned in Shanghai upgrade, but it was kind of a defer, right? So, from tech perspective, what are the most exciting and important improvements down the road, maybe in Cancun or later this year, like in your mind?
Yeah, so I'll just talk a little bit more about proto-dank sharding, and then we can talk about maybe like KZB commitments and stuff. But to put things in perspective, for those of you who aren't familiar, currently Ethereum blocks average about 90 kilobytes of call data. Or 90 kilobytes of data, 10 kilobytes of that is call data. So proto-dank sharding unlocks a lot more data availability bandwidth. Data availability is when you can like sample for data and like kind of do a statistical analysis to make sure that all the data was kind of transcribed properly. So proto-dank sharding is targeting about 1 megabyte of data up to 2 megabytes. So to go from 90 kilobytes to 1 megabyte that's a factor of more than 10, which is huge. And so when we're thinking about how can we scale this base layer that's got tens of billions of dollars of economic security, that's super important. And then all these L2s can also scale. Now you're seeing L3s. I'm getting pitches for L3s. And so these L3s then post to L2, which rolls all that data up and posts to L1. And the base L1 is faster and like more efficient and cheaper. Like it makes the entire ecosystem more streamlined. And again, like the general message that the audience should take away is you should have higher conviction in the Ethereum and EVM related like ecosystems.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gordon. So Alex, would you mind share a little bit like strategy for 分布式 as well?
对，主要上海升级之后投资方面是吧？一共我从3个点来说吧。最主要一点肯定是 Ethereum 在开放赎回之后，它的质押量会上升，那本身 Ethereum 它就是一个最大的投资机会。然后另外2个方面，我想从 DeFi 跟 CeFi 来说吧。DeFi 方面的话，一定是随着赎回增加，然后质押量也增加，然后呢会有很多的质押方会需求 LSD 这样一个产品啊。就像 Lido 啊，现在直接会自己去做节点去质押，用32个 Ethereum 去做节点的，然后自己搭节点的其实是非常少的。而相对的，在 DeFi 方面，用 Lido 这样子的质押 STETH 的是比较多的。然后有了 Staking ETH 之后呢，相对的像 Interest Swap 或者说是 Staking ETH 对 ETH 的流动性，以及其他的衍生方面都是比较有机会的。在 CeFi 方面来说的话，我们其实可以看到之前的 Staking ETH 当中，大概有30%左右的Staking Ethereum 是从中心化交易所进入的，像 Binance，第一是 Binance， 第二是 Coinbase， 第三是 Kraken， 大概3家加起来在27%到30%左右。但事实上的话 ，Coinbase 它对于这个 Staking Ethereum 的收费，就是利益方面的收费，它是非常高的，是25%。然后另外2家像 Binance 和 Kraken，他们的收费其实还是不透明的，但一定是非常高的。所以也许在中心化这方面的话，会有一些可能会有啊，我觉得是一个机会，就是专门做 staking 的业务，然后做第三方的节点质押服务的业务，可以把收费下调，然后把服务往上做。那这样的话，这样一个中心化的质押服务平台，它的收益其实是非常可观的。在投资方面也是非常有机会的。差不多。
Okay, thanks, Alex. Xiao, we understand like Hashkey got like 500 million, like the Hashkey 3 Fund 3, and we also aware like a player like Dragonfly, they did some treasury sale for the deal with Lido. So from your perspective, from the asset management perspective, how do you going to allocate your money for this opportunity?
Yeah, as I just said, maybe highly possible that we'll allocate some ETH into the staking. And beside of that, in the primary market, we also see DeFi, well, LSD and DeFi is there is a big chance of them. So since the staking and unstaking channel are all like smooth, so I think the LSD is can be closer pegged to the ETH price because there are like no lack of liquidity anymore. So the SLD value will have like a stronger consensus. So on top of that, we can integrate more like DeFi protocols or maybe build some derivatives on that. So that's yeah, there is a great chance for DeFi sector, and also at the same time, I think the staking as the staking ratio getting higher and higher, the staking like the yield is can be something like risk-free rate of the whole Ethereum ecosystem. So now the monetary system of Ethereum network is getting completed. So I think on top of that, we can think about something like a yield curve or some product based on fixed rate, for example, like futures or fixed lending, something like this. So I think there is another like whole new world for Ethereum DeFi. Yeah, we can look forward to that.
Okay, thanks, Xiao. So changes also bring like challenges, right? Last year when we did an event in San Francisco with its foundation, Justin Drake spent tons of time discussing about censorship, regulation, etc. So I would like to have Seth, because you're flying from the US, share some ideas about censorship, regulation, even oligarchy, those kind of challenges. What's your thought? Thanks.
Yeah, so in the past few months, we've had a bunch of regulatory actions in the U.S. that certainly look scary from a headline perspective. I think what unfortunately has happened with the U.S. regulatory environment around crypto is we had an absence of clarity. We had an absence of regulation. And what that led to was a bunch of regulators, whether it was the SEC, the CFTC, so the securities regulator, the commodities regulator, or the banking regulator, so the Fed, FDIC, OCC, all moving to define what they think the crypto regulatory regime should be, oftentimes through enforcement actions. And Congress, because Congress is divided between the Democrats and Republicans, the Democrats controlling the Senate, Republicans controlling the House right now, we haven't seen the legislative movement providing both broad crypto clarity and stablecoin legislation that we would have hoped to have seen by this point. When we step back as CoinFund and say, well, where does that leave us? It's actually quite interesting. So, you know, every action has a reaction. And right now you have these actions by the regulators, and they're starting to lead to a reaction from the House Financial Services Committee, from various lobbying organizations within the industry. All of this is helping to move us down the path of having regulatory clarity. So our belief has been from day one that a regulated crypto is a crypto with a much larger addressable market. And as you have regulators that come in and start to define how they're going to enforce regulations, you then have pushback from other regulators, pushback from Congress against what those initial regulators have done. And the net effect over time is that you're moving further down that path toward regulatory clarity. So I actually will take a little bit of a contrarian view on the negativity that's out there right now around the U.S. Regulatory headlines. I think that over the next few quarters, the market will start to understand that, no, we're actually now only 1 year, only 18 months, maybe 2 years away from having a fully fleshed out regulatory operating environment for crypto. And what we're watching right now is the very messy public prosecution of the development of that regulatory environment.
Yeah, I'd love to dovetail on this real fast. So I think that the lack of regulatory clarity has created a reaction from the business world over the last 5 years that has added a ton of confusion at the corporate entity level and at the structuring level. So in 2017, early 17, people were just issuing tokens, and then people started to get nervous because of various comments from various officials. So we created this dual structure of a labs and a foundation, and this foundation had to be a nonprofit. Back then, it was mostly like Zug and like Switzerland nonprofits, and it can't be a security because it's a nonprofit issuing it, and nonprofits don't make profit, right? And this was some bullshit like workaround. And since then, there's certain lawyers, I'm not going to name names, but who have, I think, preyed on that fear and have driven startup costs significantly higher for founders, and it drives me wild. And they create these overly complex structures, like with this, that I think they were inspired by campaign finance laws, where they have like disappearing foundations and other things, and you're out of sketchy jurisdictions like Panama, and you're like, what are you guys doing? And that really frustrates me. Another thing that frustrates me is what the term DAO has come to has become to embody. So the original DAOs were truly decentralized autonomous organizations. The Ethereum network in and of itself is a DAO. When I think of a DAO, I want a robot. Anything else is a business that uses smart contracts as a coordination layer. And I don't think that businesses that have smart contracts as a coordination layer will provide you meaningful help. I think they also will drag down your efficiency as an organization. And you've seen this at ETH Denver a year ago, the number one buzzword was DAO. Everyone who had never been in crypto got into crypto through DAOs. The year before, everyone who had never been in crypto got into crypto through NFTs. But last year, this DAO mania, I think set the industry back because a bunch of talent, time, resources, and financial capital went into an unproductive asset and unproductive organizational structure. So.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for my friends flying into Hong Kong, from US, from Singapore. I will just take the last question for everyone to share a couple of words about your thoughts in Hong Kong and your suggestion for Hong Kong to for the future. Thanks so much. We may start with Alex.
其实香港对于大陆的创业团队来说，本身就是非常有吸引力的。区块链行业里面的华人创业团队啊，其实韧性和开发能力都是比较强的。然后呢，香港本身其实现在离广州跟深圳都是有高铁嘛，其实来回都是非常快的。之前的话，华人团队可能更多的会选择新加坡，或者说不太习惯于新加坡那边的生活的话，也会选择欧洲或者北美。但是香港一旦开放之后呢，华人团队其实可以开发团队留在广州或者深圳，然后 BD 团队来到香港，其实是对于华人团队来说一个非常好的一个创业环境了。就是如果 Hong Kong 能持续对于区块链也好，这种金融创新也好，持一个开放的态度的话，我觉得还是能吸引到很多的华人团队也好，也是国外团队可能也能有机会吧。对。
OK， 小小。
Well, I think Hong Kong can be a very good complementary to Singapore because there's a lot of family offices and a lot of crypto funds in Singapore. And in Hong Kong, there are a lot of financial institutions and also entertainment industry. So NFT or metaverse can also be happen here. So I won't compare Hong Kong to Singapore at some level, or I think they can be added up and can be Asia perspective. Yeah. So, but I would love to hear more. Actually, you guys from the US, what do you think about the whole Asia and Hong Kong things? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just very quickly say it's incredibly impressive spending time with the community here, talking to regulators here. Really seeing the passion about bringing crypto Web3 companies here to Hong Kong. Like Xiao said, there's this blend of financial talent here, financial capital, as well as cultural and media, and it has a very New York in Asia feel. And I think that very much dovetails with the multifaceted nature of crypto. So it's very exciting to see Hong Kong opening up to crypto. And I think it's really important after that regulatory discussion, having jurisdictions like Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE, also continental Europe and the UK, that are laying the groundwork for operating crypto businesses across different regions. I think it sets a great example that regulators all over the world can start to follow and see that if you embrace crypto businesses, it's a jobs driver, it's an economic driver, and it's one that's going to grow exponentially over the next 5 years, 10 years, and will be an incredibly powerful engine of growth for the economy.
Colin.
Thank you. I have one thing to say. It's super exciting to see regulation, to get more regulatory clarity. I am highly concerned that if we as a industry don't coalesce and agree upon a few things that we can passionately educate the regulators about, that there will be too many interests that will tear us apart from the inside. And you've seen that a bit in DC, where the lobbyist organizations are just kind of controlled by people who have very different objectives, or did prior to like last month, have very different objectives from like the DeFi community and other communities. And like Sam's bill would have destroyed like DeFi as we know it because that was not in his best interest. So if we could kind of come together, identify a few things that are that will push the entire industry forward, like let DeFi live, let self-custody wallets live, don't require these intermediaries that traditional finance was built on, while still being able to have some level of KYC, some level of AML, some level of investor protection. I think there's a happy medium there, right? I don't think that it's all one or the other. I think you can have investor protections while still having like the core and letting the core innovations of crypto live and flourish and thrive.
Thanks so much, everyone. So I will cut today. And if any questions, we can follow up later. Thank you. Thank you, all the audience.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, speakers, for the insightful and in-depth discussion. Another round of applause to our speakers on stage for wonderful sharing. Thank you very much. 再次用掌心感谢我们的嘉宾的精彩分享，谢谢。So let's take a photo together towards the center. Thank you very much. Impressive sharing, thank you. So meanwhile, a gentle reminder for all of you, the morning session provides simultaneous interpretation. You can use WeChat, Twitter, browser, etc. to scan the QR code of simultaneous interpretation on the signage at the entrance or on the brochure, and then you can listen to simultaneous interpretation through your mobile phone. 那提大家，活动环节会提供同声传译服务，你们可以 scan 会看手册的二维码，然后呢，再通过手机收听。谢谢各位。So next up, please allow me to introduce the next speaker, and the next speaker is Mr. Victor Zhou, Ethereum EIP editor, and he will deliver a keynote speech to us. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Victor Zhou. Round of applause, please. 掌声欢迎。
Hi everyone, this is Victor. Thanks host, and thanks everyone for listening. I'm calling from California. Very sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm really glad and honored to be giving this presentation through remote. And today I'm going to talk about Think Open. A little bit background by myself. I'm an EIP editor, and I'm mostly active on ERCs, which is about smart contracts and application layer of Ethereum. I'm an ex-Googler, and I'm an alumni of Tsinghua and Johns Hopkins and Microsoft. A lot of people ask me, how does Ethereum govern? And I'm trying to use this speech today to tell you a little bit about what I think from inside how Ethereum govern. This is the answer. Like if there's a 1 second, 1 minute answer, this is the answer. So as you can see from outside or from inside as well, Ethereum is basically a chaos of its governance. And actually the governance, the chaos come from the openness, and it actually brings us a lot of benefits. So before that, I would like to just get a poll for all the audience. How many of you have ever written a smart contract? Raise your hand. I can see there's a lot of people in the audience, not many. Oh, yeah, some hands there, great. How many have you ever written any backend service? I know there's a lot of builders in the group. Okay, so I usually start out asking my builder friends, how do you differentiate these two design problems, which is one service started with API write and the other service started with API safe. And when you need to make a choice between them, which one do you prefer? And actually the answer is we don't care, because except that we care if there's consistency. So the Web2, we are in the paradigm of Web3, but let's just fast backward to the Web1 for a second. Web1, there's always a service with a reader and a writer. And Web2, you start to see that companies allowed APIs to call them and to be called. So that's why you see that writer different writers calling the same service, and just like you can call Google platform, API platform, WeChat SDK, things like that. And and in fact, Web 2.0 plus you can add a lot of new writers and readers. But Web 3 makes this new paradigms that actually every services are allowed to be replaced. There's this famous quote from Steve Jobs that think different. And we are actually changing it to think open in this new Web3 paradigm. The value of consensus, as you can see, even though it's only solving the problem of whether it's calling, we're calling an API safe or right, actually built Wi-Fi, it builds Bluetooth and CDMA, which is what you're using right now in the venue, and HTTP, TCP/IP, and USB Type-C as well. And these are all just standardization, where it makes possible of cars connecting to machines, connecting to headphones, etc. And if you're not familiar with those things, I can give another example. How Hong Kong is a great port, and a lot of containers and ships come in and out, which is a lot of people will see it on the near the port. And at first, those container box were built for just trains, and later it becomes an important standard where ships are going to build upon. So ships build these are built to carry those containers, and then all of a sudden in the future you'll see people even build a house based on the container, all because the container is a standard and they can integrate. So one of the core pieces in Ethereum that makes Ethereum super successful is the smart contract, and especially smart contracts surrounding standards. And in particular, ERC stands for Ethereum Request for Comments, and it has ERC20, most famous one, and then NFT is a big hit. All these are actually just a consensus of how integrations happens. For example, there's just one piece of, if you're only describing ERC20 in one piece of code, it is transfer, and ERC20 STEM21 is transfer from. And just by that simplified open consensus, we were able to build ERC20 with all these awesome projects, and the market cap, which is increasingly phenomenon. A lot of you are familiar with these growth. And this is just the the power of open integration. And this is just one of the 4 openness I'm going to introduce to you, what I think about why Ethereum is so successful in its governance. And before that, there's another thing that I want to add, which is the famous free open source software principle by Richard Stallman, who was founder of GNU Initiative. He says, for a software to be truly free, there needs to be 4 different freedoms: the freedom to use, the freedoms to study, the freedom to share, and the freedom to modify or improve. And that's also why I'm presenting to you what I think the important for openness, and why a lot of different crypto projects are at their different stages of these openness. So in the beginning, and then of course the most well seen, the most visible ones of the openness is the open to integration. And then the layer would be open to contribution, where you allow not just your inside builder to build your product, but also you allow external contributors, GitHub committers, open source contributors to also contribute to your project, to make change to your project. And then the third one is that you started to invite people to come and join the governance, if so long as they are a stakeholder or so long as they are a contributor. And last, and the core piece of it is actually a philosophical welcome, philosophically, the sense of welcoming competition. So these are the 4 openness that makes Ethereum successful. So I just introduced to you the first piece, which is the open to integration, and that is where the ERC20 and ERC721 comes from. Now, what is open to contribution? This seems to be very trivial, but actually this is a very, very new concept. The traditional business model in Web 2 or before Web 2, there is a very big thick boundary between user and builder, the outsider and the insider. You can see that user or the customer are outside of the product building or service building cycle, and the builder is inside. Usually there are employees. And with Web3, this boundary fade away. And if we allow users to come inside to help, they can actually provide a lot of valuable help. So these are the ABCDE level of contributions. Just like a little baby can climb up a ladder, of course, safety first. The lowest or the easiest part to begin with is just to engage. Like you can give a like, you can give a, you can share a event. You can just tell people how great this project is, that the product is. And then the second level is start to get involved and emotionally involved, attached, and maybe you will donate. And the third one is you started to want to change or to commit to change. You fix bug, you kind of propose improvements into it. And the fourth one is that some people starting to build it. You can build the software, you can participating in the event, you can help organizing. And the first one and the top one is that you start to take initiative. I'm just using this as a simple way to kind of help people remember that contributions come at all the levels, and it actually has a funnel. A good example of the next one is I'm going to talk about open governance. Open governance, different from the traditional way of governance, is that traditionally you see that companies have their structures, institutions have their top-down levels, right? You can see CEOs being elected by the board, and then they start to assign roles and assemble teams. But there's the other way that the decentralized world start to leverage more and more, which is open governance. Famously, before crypto come about, there's Apache, where users becomes contributors like committers, and then code committers start to form project management committee, and then becomes core member of Apache, and then they elect boards. So you can raise, as a contributor, you can raise your rank in the governance and start to be trusted more and more, and start to have more and more power in decision-making process. It also happens in Wikipedia, which is a decentralized community that I like the most before Ethereum. And it forms it has a very, very large piece of governance surrounding the open contributors, which is mainly the Wikipedia editors. And Ethereum, just like I show you, the chaotic outside thing, actually the governance has a lot of stakeholders. The smallest one is actually the Ethereum Foundation. It's the smallest one. And a lot of times the Ethereum Foundation is trying to stay as neutral as possible, to just be facilitator of a lot of things that happens. And we, as the protocol designers, EIP authors, are there to propose the standard, not necessarily build it themselves. And then you will see people who are protocol developers, who develops the client code, or who may also develops other things like ERCs as well, like application layer of protocols. And there's node operators, EVM operators, or the beacon chain operators. A lot of you are actually also part of this picture, right? Like if you have happened to hold ETH, then you are part of this stakeholding a group, right? How many of you actually raise your hand if you actually happen to carry ETH in your allocation? I see a few hands. Thanks. And then and last but I think most importantly is the application users, actually, people who actually make use of Ethereum, its application, or just its chain. And then every one of us is basically voting with our feet in some sense to change the governance. And this is how Ethereum was able to keep the governance open. One of the anecdotes that I like is that before the POS merge last year, USDC, the company that issues USDC, Circle, actually announced that they will be supporting the POS. Then Vitalik famously said that he's relieved because he was a little bit worried about that the DeFi world would not be following the POS. Now you see that even if you are the founder of this whole project, you will be worried about that DeFi project like USDC vote with their feet to go not in the same direction that you're liking. So everyone is kind of like voting in your feet. And the ultimate openness is actually the hardest one to understand. It's basically allowing the competition to come about. And this is the piece that I couldn't appreciate enough about Ethereum. One thing that is very special in Ethereum and also other successful blockchain projects is that it welcomes competition, even if sometimes that competition means replacing themselves. So the competition has the core philosophy behind the scene is that the belief that we could be not the most optimal ones. We could be wrong, we could be compromised, and then we need to always be ready to receive improvements. We're always ready to receive corrections, to be replaced by something else. For example, like Bitcoin, there is a mechanism, you can call it 51% attack, but you can also say if 51% of the power wants to change direction of the Bitcoin chain, then they can actually socially fork Ethereum. This is how it happens to the MakerDAO fork in Ethereum. Bitcoin was famously accepting this principle at the time when it was designed. And Wikipedia also has this sense that everyone should be able to fork Wikipedia for its whole content, so long as the copyright policy is followed. Then you should be able to just take Wikipedia and then create a new one that is a duplicate, and then take it to your directions that you want to go with. With this sense that we can be replaced, we actually welcome competition, and we also welcome the competition from inside. You might notice that there's not one, but like about 10 different Ethereum EVM execution different kind of nodes. There's also like 5 or 6 consensus clients that's been actively developed. In fact, the Ethereum Foundation and the leaders of this movement is trying to argue that people should diversify their clients. So far, the execution client has been too concentrated on the Go version of Ethereum, the GIF. And then there is a call to diversify the clients here. And there's also chain diversity, right? Even though Ethereum itself is one chain, it's the mainnet. It actually welcomes and have supported many other chains and their ecosystem to be a part of this whole Ethereum ecosystem, knowing that some of them may be even better than Ethereum or can be replacing Ethereum. And there is a design that Ethereum has a sense of chain ID, so that if you want to launch an EVM project, you can just specify a chain ID. And on the application layer, there's the standards. ERC, Ethereum Request for Comments, is welcoming smart contract to be standardized. Then the implementations can compete. So if you're interested in that, there's a few things that you can help. For example, you can participate in one of our projects, which is called Project ERC Raft, where the smart contract designers and the app developers come together and share their implementations. And you can, the goal is actually make it as easy as possible to use and to rely on. Just like you can use OpenZeppelin, you're using this to boost your innovation of smart contracts. This is one way you can help. Just like I'm explaining to you how Ethereum as a whole is welcoming open contributions, you can also contribute to this particular project, because we believe that the biggest stakeholder in Ethereum is actually the application users. And ERC Rev is trying to help the open integration and everyone who use the applications. We also look for a lot of partners who can help this project as well. So this is what I want to share with you. Think open. This is how how I see Ethereum become successful in its governance, and I wish all the other projects can take this as a reference and inspiration. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Victor, for the inspirational sharing. So coming up next, we have the next speaker, Mr. Kevin Yu, co-founder and CEO of Click, to deliver a keynote speech for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kevin. Kevin, please.
Hello. Yeah, just testing if the mic works here. But yeah, hey everyone. I'm Kevin. I'm the founder of Click. We're building this very cool new primitive called identity oracles. And then yeah, let's just directly dive into that. So what are identity oracles, right? For those of you who have sit through the entire morning, there are like presentations made by Chainlink people who build a more traditional type of infrastructure called oracles, which basically brings off-chain data on-chain, right? So that's how oracles work. In our case, identity oracles, we're targeting specifically on user behavior and then user identity data in different Web2 platforms. So for Chainlink, usually what the data they're dealing with are more public data, like your price feeds for your exchanges or some kind of real world assets, right? In our case, this is all private data that's held by some users in, like some random servers within Web2, For example, your Twitter servers, your GitHub servers, your banks, your KYC providers, etc., etc. And so we're basically designing this infrastructure to bring this on-chain into different primitives in a relatively trustless and price-preserving way. So yeah, this is the general flow of how oracles usually work, right? You have some off-chain data, and then yeah, the oracle is the piece of middleware that conveys that into some on-chain vehicle. So here is a rough technical architecture of how our identity oracles work underneath. But on the high-level idea here, right? So the data in our case are basically all these like different Web2 servers. For example, like the Twitter servers and GitHub servers I was talking about. And then there's also like information that users directly access within their browser, right? So this is data that may not be directly accessible through some kind of API endpoints or like SDK calls, but then instead this is purely just HTML pages that users are viewing in their browsers. So we have ways to access that as well. In between this modular privacy stack, within the Oracle network is a bunch of different solutions we built with different cryptographic primitives like zero-knowledge proofs, trusted enclaves, as well as multi-party computation. With a combination of all of these, you can have a very customizable way of managing user data. And then, yeah, just connecting them eventually into different identity vehicles that are either on-chain, like soulbound tokens or NFTs that can hold like user identity information, or your normal like action trigger contracts. This is similar to like what Chainlink offers, right? In terms of yeah, just some kind of data triggered behaviors, as well as like decentralized identity systems or even centralized identity systems, right? So like this piece of middleware, you can just think of it as a generalized software that can bring user information from one platform to another. Diving deeper into the technical details a little bit. So for a generalized, yeah, I'm just keeping the diagram here so that there's something to refer to. But for a generalized design of identity oracles, right? It's broken down into 4 different steps. Basically, first of all, you need to authenticate someone's identity, right? So for example, I want to put like my Twitter data or like my bank information to a particular address that I own on Ethereum or a particular DID or a particular set of identifiers in the DID system, right? I need to authenticate that I actually own this Twitter account or this bank account off-chain. So this is what authentication does. Usually, or more traditionally, this is done through like OAuth tokens that are offered by these like different Web2 platforms. But you want to make sure that as the middleware provider, you're not actually accessing the tokens directly because it vastly compromises user privacy there. The second step is basically to retrieve the data upon authentication, right? And then usually in this step, you just passing all the required parameters for the data that you want to access eventually. And yeah, like alongside the authentication method, you can basically pull the data in a price-preserving environment. Then like some computation is performed off-chain because at this moment still like on-chain computation in general is very expensive, right? So if you want to do more complicated computations, for example, running some kind of AI models or like machine learning models on top of the data that you're pulling from these off-chain sources, you would rather do that off-chain in a privacy-preserving environment while making sure that the computation itself can be can have its correctness for execution being guaranteed. And finally, you're just feeding that data into different on-chain vehicles or off-chain vehicles as we have already mentioned here. So what are the primary design challenges that we're facing during this entire process, right? So the most obvious one is that you want to ensure that user data during this entire process of acquisition and computation, it has full privacy, right? End-to-end privacy, whereas the middleware provider, you can't access the authentication documents of this user or any of the private data. For example, their like bank balances or credit scores yourself. In this, so traditionally how people deal with this, right, is either using a centralized server to call the official APIs, right? For example, there's a really famous Web2 company called Plaid, which basically aggregates like bank information for users from all these like, just like different banks. That's what they basically do, right? But then this obviously just like doesn't respect any of user privacy in between, right? And they have to basically spend a lot of money on compliance to deal with all these like legislations like GDPR or CCPA, etc. So there's huge problems in that, right? Alternatively, people have been proposing ways to allow users to directly generate zero-knowledge proofs about their data within the browser, right? So zero-knowledge proofs, you can just think of that as like very generalized like privacy-preserving primitives that allow you to, for example, instead of directly showing the data, show a desensitized version of that, for example, a range of of a particular value that's attached with a proof that you can verify under specific specific parameters. But in this case, right, like users can directly change data in their browser before generating the proof, right? So this is known in the academia as the private witness problem, because like someone who is generating the zero-knowledge proof, he has to have access to the original witness, which in this case is user's private data, to make sure that the user, the data itself actually has privacy, integrity, right? So yeah, this is a primary design problem that we're trying to solve. And then another one, obviously, is decentralization. So if the data is being accessed through like centralized servers in between, then obviously you don't because the middleware can have access to all the data, it's extremely hard to decentralize in this case, right? So you want the people who are providing all the computational resources not being able to access the data, so that basically like a lot of people can potentially provide the infrastructure in between, right? So helping you to reach decentralization eventually. So how do we solve this, right? This is basically what our modular privacy layer is designed for. We have basically 4 major components as shown in this in this graph at the middle. So on the high level, right, to solve the private witness problem, basically the privacy versus integrity problem I was talking about, we have 2 major types of solution. One is a TEE-based oracle that we developed ourselves. So TEEs are basically or enclaves, right? I'll give a deeper dive into that in the next slide. But then these are basically hardware where like all the programs that are running inside, right? You can have like very nice privacy properties for that, and yeah, like private memory, private storage, etc., while making sure that the entire program execution does have correctness. So basically, no one is tampering with what's happened in between. There's another solution that we've been collaborating with Chainlink as well. That's based on MPC. So this is a MPC protocol, like multi-party computation protocol, that's directly embedded into a normal TLS session, which is basically the main kind of like internet protocol with which you're accessing like data from all these different traditional Web2 servers, right? But yeah, like the MPC here basically ensures that the data that's being accessed during this entire process is not being tampered by the users. So within the enclaves, we do have these like zero-knowledge proofs being set up, right? Because the private witness problem can be solved by the enclaves themselves, right? So we have ZK set membership proofs, which are used to preserve user anonymity. So these are basically ways to decouple users' off-chain data and then their on-chain identities, right? So for example, you don't really want anyone to know that this address and then the information that's being held on this like on-chain address, right, is actually mapped to a particular like Twitter ID off-chain, right? You don't want that to happen because every step of this entire process, if that's broken, like your entire privacy is just completely leaked. And then we also have range proofs, right? So these are the desensitization tools that we're talking about, where like you can instead of accessing the raw values for the data, you're having a desensitized version of some kind of range, right, on top of that. So similarly, for a MPC-based network, we have ZK selective opening, which is similar to range proofs, and then we also have like collaborative snarks. So these are ways where you can basically hold witnesses in multiple nodes instead of in a single node. So for example, when I'm making a Merkle root aggregating everyone's identity and then trying to prove my membership in that root, right? With collaborative snarks, you can share that across multiple different nodes. And then finally, yeah, like these are like the more vanilla ways of like doing notarization on top of the HTML pages that you have, or yeah, just directly desensitizing the data within the TE Oracle there as well. So these are all like plug and play, just like plugin solutions that application developers can directly choose to adapt based on their particular use cases. Yeah, so just a quick overview on the TE-based Oracle, which is the primary approach we're taking into production right now, right? So we're already partnered with major Web2 brands like Sony, and then we're doing demos for a lot of